The scream was constant. Not a shriek of terror, not a howl of pain, but a relentless, high-pitched whine that burrowed into your skull and scraped against your bones. It was the Geiger counter, of course, and its manic pronouncements were the soundtrack to our lives now, a constant reminder of the invisible poison that clung to everything. Each click, each escalation in pitch, was a phantom touch, a cold hand tracing the outline of your mortality. The air itself seemed to shimmer with the unseen danger, heavy and metallic, tasting of dust and decay. We marched on, boots sinking slightly into the overgrown asphalt, the silence between the screams broken only by the crunch of shattered glass and the ragged rasp of our own breathing. The sky was the color of bruised plums, heavy with the promise of a storm that would never break. It pressed down on us, mirroring the weight in our chests, the unspoken fear that gnawed at the edges of our resolve. Every shadow seemed to writhe with unseen horrors, every rustle of leaves a potential threat. We were phantoms ourselves, swallowed by the encroaching wilderness, ghosts walking through a graveyard of forgotten dreams. The world had ended, not with a bang, but with a slow, insidious creep, a silent killer that had turned vibrant cities into desolate husks. Ahead, the skeletal remains of a Ferris wheel clawed at the sky, a rusted monument to a joy that was no more. Once, children had screamed with delight as they were hoisted above the world, their faces flushed with laughter. Now only the wind whispered through its empty carriages, a mournful song for a lost innocence. I gripped the handle of my rifle tighter, the cold steel a small comfort in this landscape of despair. We had a mission, a purpose, however fragile and uncertain it might be. We had to keep moving. The photograph was faded, the colors leached out by time and sunlight. It showed a younger me, grinning mischievously, arms slung around her shoulders. Her hair was long then, the color of spun gold, and her eyes sparkled with a light that had long since been extinguished. Sarah. Just the name was a whisper of pain, a ghost that haunted my waking hours and invaded my dreams. We were inseparable then, two halves of a whole, bound together by a love that felt as vast and limitless as the sky itself. We'd spent summers chasing fireflies in the fields behind her house, winters building snow forts that crumbled under the weight of our laughter. I remember the day we found the abandoned cabin in the woods. It was hidden deep within the trees, shrouded in ivy and mystery. We imagined it was a secret hideaway, a place where we could escape the world and create our own. We spent weeks cleaning it out, scrubbing away the grime and cobwebs, filling it with stolen blankets and forgotten treasures. We carved our initials into the old oak tree that stood sentinel beside it, a symbol of our enduring bond. S and L, forever intertwined. She was always the brave one, the fearless adventurer who dared to dream of a life beyond the confines of our small town. I was the cautious one, the grounded realist who tried to temper her wild enthusiasm with a dose of practicality. But somehow, we balanced each other, her light illuminating my darkness, my stability anchoring her flight. We were two sides of the same coin, destined to be together, forever and always. That's what we believed, anyway. Before the sirens. Before the sky turned black. Before everything changed. The memories were a bittersweet ache, a reminder of everything I had lost. I carried them with me, like precious jewels, hidden deep within my heart. They were a source of both pain and strength, a reason to keep fighting, even when the world seemed determined to break me. I owed it to her, to the girl with the golden hair and the sparkling eyes, to survive. To find some semblance of hope in this desolate landscape. To honor her memory by refusing to give up. Block 3, the creature, a grotesque parody of life twisted by radiation, lunged. Its limbs, elongated and brittle, snapped against the concrete as it moved with unnatural speed. The Geiger counter in my hand screamed, a constant, piercing shriek that mirrored the terror clawing at my throat. Anya screamed too, a raw, primal sound that cut through the mechanical whine. I shoved her behind me, raising the pipe, the only weapon I had. It felt pathetic, insignificant against the sheer wrongness of the thing before us. Time seemed to warp. Each second stretched, filled with the creature's guttural growls and the rasp of its claws on the ground. I swung the pipe, connecting with a sickening thud against its skull. The creature staggered but didn't fall. It swiped at me, its claws tearing through my protective suit, a searing pain blossoming on my arm. The air hissed as the suit's integrity was breached. Anya, fueled by desperation, grabbed a piece of jagged rebar from the rubble. She charged, a whirlwind of fury and fear, and plunged the metal deep into the creature's side. It roared, a sound that seemed to shake the very foundations of the building, and finally collapsed, a twitching, oozing mass on the floor. We stood there, panting, the silence after the roar even more deafening. The Geiger counter still screamed, a constant reminder of the danger we were in. I checked Anya for injuries, my hands trembling. She was unharmed, but her eyes were wide with a horror that mirrored my own. "We have to go," I said, my voice hoarse. "Now." We ran, not daring to look back, adrenaline pumping through our veins. We ran until we reached the edge of the exclusion zone, until the Geiger counter's shrieks subsided to a manageable hum. We ran until we collapsed, exhausted and terrified, on the relative safety of the other side. But even there, the creature was still with us. It was in the nightmares that plagued our sleep, in the constant fear that gnawed at our insides, in the knowledge that we had seen something that could never be unseen. The radiation had not only warped the creature, it had warped us too. Block 4, the silence in my apartment is a different kind of scream now. It doesn't pierce the ears, but it drills into the soul. The hum of the refrigerator, the distant sirens, the gentle patter of rain against the window, they all amplify the absence of Anya's laughter, the ghost of her touch. I still see her sometimes, in the crowded streets, in the faces of strangers. A fleeting glimpse of her dark hair, the curve of her cheek, and my heart leaps, only to plummet again when I realize it's not her. The doctors say it's grief, a natural reaction to trauma. They offer pills, therapy, platitudes. But none of it fills the void. My arm still aches, a phantom pain that flares up when the weather changes. The scar, a jagged, angry line, is a constant reminder of that day. I trace it with my fingers sometimes, feeling the raised edges, the phantom sensation of the creature's claws. I tried to go back once. I stood at the edge of the exclusion zone, the Geiger counter a low, mournful drone in my hand. The city, once vibrant and full of life, was now a silent, decaying monument to human folly. I couldn't bring myself to cross the line. Some places are best left to the ghosts. The nightmares are less frequent now, but they still come. I wake up in a cold sweat, the creature's roar echoing in my ears, the taste of fear still lingering on my tongue. I reach for the bottle of pills on my nightstand, a temporary escape from the memories that haunt me. I tell myself that I did what I had to do, that I protected Anya, that I saved her life. But the truth is, I couldn't save her from the radiation, from the fear, from the knowledge of what we had seen. And I couldn't save myself either. We are both marked by that place, forever bound to its silent, radioactive embrace. Sometimes, late at night, I imagine her still there, wandering the empty streets, a ghost in a ghost town. And I wonder if she remembers me, if she forgives me for not being able to bring her back from the darkness. The silence answers me, a cold, empty void where her voice used to be. And I know, with a certainty that chills me to the bone, that the Geiger counter will always scream, deep within my soul. Block 5. The Geiger counter pulsed, a frantic heartbeat against the oppressive silence of the exclusion zone. Its screams had become a constant companion, a morbid lullaby accompanying their long march. But now, the screams were different. Higher pitched, more insistent, a frantic warning that clawed at Alara's nerves. They stood before the monolith, its obsidian surface shimmering with an unnatural heat haze. It pulsed with a dark energy that seemed to resonate deep within her bones. "This is it," she breathed, her voice barely audible above the Geiger counter's frenzy. "The source." Kalen's face, etched with exhaustion and years of unspoken pain, was grim. He ran a gloved hand over the monolith's surface. "It's drawing energy. Feeding on something. Humanity," Alara whispered, the realization dawning on her. "Our fear. Our despair. Our collective trauma. It's amplifying it, weaponizing it." The monolith hummed, a low, resonant thrum that vibrated through the ground and into their very souls. Images flashed in Alara's mind, the faces of the dead, the screams of the dying, the bleak, hopeless landscapes she had witnessed throughout her life. The monolith was a mirror, reflecting back the worst of humanity's creation. Kalen reached into his pack, pulling out the device he had been meticulously crafting for months, a complex array of crystals and scavenge technology. "This is it," he said, his voice tight with determination. "This is what I built. I believe I can use this to disrupt the energy field, to create a feedback loop that will sever its connection to everything." He began the activation sequence, his fingers flying over the controls with practiced ease. The air crackled with energy as the device whirred to life, bathing the area in an ethereal blue light. The monolith shuddered, its humming intensifying into a deafening roar. Suddenly, a figure materialized before them, shimmering into existence from the very fabric of the air. It was a woman, radiant and ethereal, her eyes burning with an ancient light. Alara gasped, recognizing the face from the tattered photograph she had found in the abandoned research facility. Dr. Anya Volkov, the lead scientist of the ill-fated project that had spawned the exclusion zone. "You cannot stop it," Anya said, her voice resonating with power. "This is the next stage of evolution. Humanity's suffering is the catalyst for something greater." "Evolution?" Kalen spat, his voice filled with disgust. "This is annihilation. You unleashed a monster, Anya. And we're here to stop it." Anya's face twisted in anguish. "I thought I was creating a solution. A way to harness the power of human emotion for good. But I was wrong. So terribly wrong." She looked at Alara, her eyes filled with a desperate plea. "You must destroy it. You must end my mistake." Alara nodded, her heart heavy with sorrow. She understood now. Anya hadn't been a villain, but a misguided visionary, consumed by her own ambition. She turned to Kalen, her eyes conveying her resolve. "Do it, Kalen. End this." Kalen hesitated, his gaze shifting from Anya to the monolith. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for what he had to do. "For the future," he whispered. He slammed his fist down on the final activation switch. The device surged with power, unleashing a wave of energy that crashed against the monolith. The air shimmered and distorted, the ground trembled, and the Geiger counter screamed its final, ear-splitting shriek before falling silent. The monolith began to crack, fissures spiderwebbing across its surface. The dark energy that had emanated from it dissipated, replaced by a sense of profound emptiness. Anya faded away, her form dissolving into motes of light. Then, with a deafening roar, the monolith shattered, its fragments scattering across the desolate landscape. A wave of pure, cleansing energy washed over them, purging the area of the lingering radiation. Alara felt the weight of the exclusion zone lift, the oppressive silence replaced by the faint sound of birdsong. They stood there, amidst the wreckage, battered and exhausted, but alive. Kalen deactivated his device, his hands trembling. He looked at Alara, his eyes filled with a mixture of relief and disbelief. "It's gone," he said, his voice hoarse. "It's finally gone." Alara nodded, tears streaming down her face. The long march was over. The Geiger counter was silent. But the scars of the exclusion zone would forever remain, etched into their hearts and minds. They had faced the darkness and emerged, not unscathed, but with a renewed sense of hope. They had stared into the abyss and found the strength to turn away. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, it felt possible. They had earned their peace. They had earned their tomorrow. They looked at each other, and then began the long walk home.